Calisthenics training and bodyweight training isn't everything as it seems. Just like anything in life, there are pros and cons. And pretending like there's no downsides actually takes away from what the training is and a full understanding of it. And if we can understand what the cons are, we can either avoid it or work with it in order to get its true benefits. And I've seen the endless pros and cons of training bodyweight skills and bodyweight training through hybrid calisthenics because I've been coaching hundreds of athletes in professional bodyweight skills such as gymnastics, parkour, and ninja warrior, as well as helping hundreds of busy professionals just like you in order to get bodyweight skills. Let's go over the top 5 downside of training bodyweight in calisthenics and how we can actually use that to our advantage. And the first downside is exercise choice. When you go into a traditional gym, you have so many different exercise machines that allow you to target very specific muscle groups within your body. For example, in your tricep muscle, there are actually 3 heads, so different exercises of the tricep muscle actually affects those 3 different parts. So if you're looking to increase your muscle specifically in there, then you want to get very specific exercise to help with that. Unfortunately, calisthenics doesn't have that. There are ways that you can work around it. Doesn't mean we don't have enough exercises. Well, that's not true. We have 6 movement patterns that we really want to focus on. Our vertical and horizontal push, our vertical and horizontal pull, our hinge, and our squat. And we have all the bodyweight exercises that we need. As long as we're doing the bodyweight version of all these movement patterns, then we're being efficient because we're hitting all the muscles in our body. So for example, the vertical pull would be pull-up, the horizontal pull would be the inverted rows, the vertical push would be our pike push-ups, our horizontal push would be our classic push-ups, our squat would be our bodyweight squat leading to pistol squats, and then our hinge would be leading into the Nordic curls. There are many other exercises than this, and there's ways to change it, such as doing chin-ups or chin-up version inverted row, sissy squat to single leg deadlifts, but we can still be just as efficient because studies have also shown that just getting 15 to 20 sets per week of these muscle groups is when you're being efficient. So you could just do pull-ups, do 15 to 20 sets a week, and be efficient in muscle growth. And here's a little hint. I said there are 2 ways to get stronger. We're really going to touch on that second one later in the video, as it's going to be really important. But what if it's too easy to the point where you're doing 50 push-ups? Let's also tackle that in just 1 second. The other good news is all the exercises that we have in calisthenics are supposed to be compound movements, meaning they hit multiple muscle groups at the same time. A push-up is our version of the bench press. If someone at the gym did a full bodyweight exercise doing squats, deadlifts, lat pull downs, bent over rows, bench press, and shoulder press, you wouldn't consider them wasting their time. The other good news is the exercise list, hopefully, are all the things that are just helping you to get within your goal. So if I want to get a muscle up, working on 5 different back exercises won't necessarily help me get to the muscle up faster. You know what it will be? Doing different pull-up variations that allows me to get better at the pull-ups. That does mean that if you want some supplementary work, just getting a pair of dumbbells might actually be extremely helpful. For example, with the shoulders, you could do lateral raises with those dumbbells, and that's going to add an exercise that you normally wouldn't be able to do. Does that mean that you won't be able to hit your shoulders? Well, no. For example, handstand push-up and pike push-ups are extremely good for your shoulders. But weights definitely have an advantage that calisthenics doesn't. It's progressive overload. So for your muscles to increase in size and in strength, there are only 2 ways that you can do it. One of those is making sure that it continually keeps working hard, more and more over time. So the weights, you can see how easy that is. You're doing 100 pounds, and over time you're doing 105, 110, and so far. In calisthenics, it's a little bit harder to do that. Many studies have constantly shown that for muscle growth, you want something between 6 and 35 reps. So if you're doing over 50 push-ups, you're no longer working on strength, you're working on endurance. So how do you increase progressive overload? Well, we have to increase the movements. For push-ups, you lead into pseudo planche push-ups, or you go into the one-arm variety, such as archer push-ups, one-arm negative push-ups to one-arm push-ups. Since as you're getting stronger, we might need to be adding more reps since the weight can't really be increased. So for example, you're doing knee push-ups, one day you're doing 10, the next day you're doing 11, the next day you're doing 12, you are progressing in the knee push-ups. That also means you almost always have to go to as many as possible. But now slowly what you want to do is adding that full push-up. Now you don't need to do any guesswork. We have a PDF linked down below that actually has the examples of all these compound movements and all the progressions within them, and also explains some programs and how to increase, but this is just the overview of it. So if you want to go ahead and click the link below and you can get that absolutely for free. Usually after 10 reps, you can start adding the next exercise, which in this case would be the push-up. Now you're doing something that we'd call a drop set, where you're doing the highest version as you can, and then you're lowering down until failure. You might only be adding 1 or 2 full push-ups, and then you can't do any more, but your muscles aren't tired enough, so now you go directly down to knee push-ups and you do as many as you can until you're done. And the next time you might be doing 3 or 4. You can see in the downside, it's not as straightforward as you would in weight training, but honestly, that's one of the reasons why me and my clients, we really like the variety and the fact that it changes. If you do want to have a little bit more stability, same thing, you add a little bit of weight training in there, now you have something that's more consistent and something that changes all the time. But something sometimes you don't have the option to go to the gym or get these weight trainings. But one of the benefits you hear all the time about body weight and calisthenics is you can do it anywhere at any time. Now that's completely true, and it's a huge benefit, but it's a double-edged sword. That's the reason why it's one of the downsides. Now, a lot of people might have felt this during COVID, in which they wanted to start getting healthy or wanted to continue doing their exercises. And what happened is they started doing their exercises at home, but then they felt this weird mix-up where their dojo, their gym, the where that they tried to do their exercise was also the place that they do their daily living. So it's fantastic, you don't have any excuses, but it will kind of mix you up, which is why when you do work out, you really want to make sure that where you're doing it is a place that is not mixed up with other day-to-day life. The good news is that when you do miss a day, you can't make it to the gym, or it's not nice outside or something like that, you can do it inside. Or when you're doing skill work, so for example, if you're doing handstand work and you're doing it against the wall, and you can do that every single day, that's super easy. I'm talking about that mindset of when you're doing an exercise and you need to go all out. Sometimes just having a park that's really close that you can just hang the gymnastics ring is perfect in order for you to do your exercises. That's also the reason why the majority of my clients, not all of them, like to go to the gym, which is why it's easy to add all these benefits of the weights, but that makes their spot when it comes to working out. So I've already mentioned a couple of times the benefits of weight training. One of the downsides of calisthenics is related to your specific goals, is that calisthenics is not the best for bodybuilding. In fact, it's probably not the most optimal way to get strength. And we're talking about pure strength, so you're looking at strong men, you're looking at bodybuilders. Calisthenics doesn't necessarily build that in the way that you traditionally see. Is that saying that calisthenics and bodyweight training does not get strength, does not get a good looking body? Absolutely not. That's the exact opposite. You can clearly see that by just looking at the top level calisthenics athletes or just looking at general calisthenics athletes. You don't see them as, oh, they're unfit or they don't have muscles. All the things that you need in order to increase strength and get stronger and grow muscles, you can do all that with calisthenics and bodyweight training. But we just talked about that you're not going to get as strong as quickly than you would absolute strength when it comes to weighted training. But does that matter? I don't think so. Because the whole point of calisthenics, the goal is in order to get better in our ability to be strong with our own body. So how can you not get stronger in your own body if you're not doing movements with your body? And our goal, at least here at Awesome Ninja Fitness, is trying to get better at skills and movement. And all of those skills and movement are completely related within our body weight. So we can get progressive overload, we can get the right exercise choices in order to get better at those moves. Something a little bit more specific, such as the planche. I cannot work towards the planche if I'm only working on bench press. And earlier I mentioned there's two ways to get stronger in something. The second way is just your body becomes more efficient in that movement. So if I just work on pull-ups, I'm going to get more efficient with pull-ups because things about my body actually physically change to get better at it so I can consistently do it. So the fact that there are less exercise choices is actually another benefit because we have to get better at the things that actually going to get better at the moves. The more efficient that I am with the pull-up, the better it is for me to get the muscle up. And the last downside depends on the individual because it matters if you actually enjoy that kind of exercise or not. Did you actually work towards skills or did you work towards these strength things and did you actually enjoy it? Some people don't. Some people want to go in the gym, lift as heavy things as they can, get the biggest muscles that they can, and that's it. And that's extremely impressive. And I respect that. There's not a single bodybuilder or strongman that you can point at me and I'll say, no, I don't respect that. That's extremely impressive. That is their discipline. And that's the same thing with calisthenics and bodyweight training. Maybe because of the exercise choices, maybe because of how progressive overload works, maybe because of the goal is not there or the when and where, whatever those reasons, maybe you don't enjoy it. I did not enjoy weighted training until I started competing professionally for Ninja Warrior. When I started using that to increase my performance in a specific skill, which in this case is Ninja Warrior, is then I started enjoying it. Not the exercise itself, but what it actually created further on. Some people like lifting the weights. So if you are someone who does really enjoy getting these skills, or maybe you felt like you were at the gym and it felt really boring, or it just didn't match your personality, or it's just missing something else, then maybe bodyweight training and getting skills is something for you. If you're not 100% sure and you have some questions you want to ask, there's a link down below. The link to a free orientation call with me in order we talk about what a program can look like for you, and only if you like the program and I feel like I've answered all your questions, then we'll talk about how we can actually work together. So we've talked about a lot of the downsides of calisthenics and a lot of the upsides. The main thing is as long as you find something that you're consistent with, that you enjoy, that you can actually offset the pros and cons, then consistency is the most important thing. And however you overcome that, regardless of what you do, there will be pros and cons. It's just which cons are you able to work with. And as you work with those cons, enjoy the pros and keep that consistency, make sure to also stay awesome.